It all started in the middle of a freezing January night back in 1968. A woman lay completely still on her bed, pale and cold, while her husband quietly slipped the wedding ring off her finger, like he already knew she was lost. He didn't cry. Instead, he walked into another room and opened this old creepy book called The Painted, filled with strange writings. He turned off all the lights, made the room pitch black, and started whispering the ritual exactly mentioned in the book. The book promised that if he did everything right, the thing that had been haunting his wife would finally show itself. He followed the steps, lit some candles, and told the thing to come out and paint its shape onto a blank canvas. At first, nothing happened. The room stayed quiet. He thought it was a waste of time, but then the paint started moving all by itself. It rose from the trays, floated through the air, and began forming something on the canvas like an invisible hand was drawing it. Right then, every single candle went out, and the room got swallowed by total darkness. He reached for a match, struck it, and saw what had appeared on the canvas. The painted figure was staring right at him, smiling this cold, awful smile. He panicked and threw the lit match at it, hoping it would all burn down, but the match bounced off the painting. Before he could even breathe, the painted figure leapt off the canvas and tore into him. The next morning, his wife woke up, confused and shaky, only to find him sitting in the corner of the room. He wasn't normal anymore. His eyes were wild. He just sat there grinning like a maniac, laughing at nothing. 5 months later, the story shifts as we meet Evelyn, a mom trying to keep things together. She's got 3 kids, Janice, Lucy, and Nelson. Her husband, Adam, a laid-back carpenter, is off in a corner flipping through an old, dusty magazine with naked women inside. Evelyn walks in and tells him that Janice has already asked to borrow the car. She also notices the magazine has a different cover than before and questions it. Adam says it's for research and awkwardly takes it from her, pretending the binding is too fragile. Downstairs, Lucy complains to Nelson that Janice doesn't like her. Nelson shrugs it off, says she's just moody, and tells Lucy that back when Janice was her age, the two of them used to have a lot of fun. That same day, a lawyer shows up from the Franco estate with news they never saw coming. Evelyn has been named executor of her cousin's estate. Evelyn tells Adam her cousin passed away, but they weren't super close. When Adam hears the cousin's husband was filthy rich, he wants to know if they're getting anything out of it. Evelyn says she'll be paid 10 grand plus a cut of whatever's in the estate. Adam's shocked, but Evelyn says the only other option is probate, and that could take a whole year. She doesn't want to go alone, so Adam offers to bring the whole family. Evelyn hesitates because Janice has softball camp, but Adam says it's worth skipping for something like this, a once-in-a-lifetime shot. The whole family moved into the big old house, even though none of them really felt good about it. Evelyn told Adam the appraisers were showing up next week, so they had to go through everything in the house and write it all down before Sunday. She gave Nelson the job of checking out the lower level while she and Adam took care of the main floor. Later that day, Nelson came up looking a little weirded out and showed Evelyn a painting he found. The colors looked fresh, like someone had just painted it, even though the frame was dusty and old. Evelyn stared at it and said it looked kind of exotic, but something about it made her uncomfortable. When Adam walked over and asked what was going on, she didn't give him a straight answer and instead said she didn't want Lucy seeing stuff like that. Then she told Nelson to just put the painting up in the attic for now. That night, Janice found herself staring at this one painting of a creepy-looking barber. It made her skin crawl, but she couldn't look away. She tried to pull it off the wall, but it wouldn't move no matter how hard she tugged. Somewhere else in the house, Adam was feeling ignored after Evelyn told him she wasn't in the mood, so he wandered off by himself and started flipping through some old nude magazines. But then he heard someone whispering, a woman's voice. When he looked up, he saw a naked woman standing in another room, just staring at something. Shock, he rushed over and opened the door, but the room was completely empty. The next morning, Janice woke up and freaked out when she saw chunks of her hair lying on the pillow. She instantly blamed Lucy and stormed off to confront her. Evelyn stepped in to calm them down and asked what was happening. Janice pointed at her ruined hair, yelling that Lucy did it. Lucy denied it again and again, but Evelyn still asked her to apologize. Lucy refused, saying she didn't touch Janice. Later that day, Evelyn was wiping down a dusty old mirror when she noticed something off. One of the women in a painting behind her moved like a person in a video. Evelyn quickly turned around, but the painting looked totally normal again. She tried to shake it off, thinking maybe she was just tired. Then she heard Lucy's voice nearby and followed the sound of her footsteps down the hall, only to see a door slam shut in front of her. She rushed to open it, but then she glanced out the window and saw Lucy playing outside. Overwhelmed with fear and not knowing what to believe anymore, she opened the basement door and slowly walked downstairs. Everything was quiet until she saw a small cabinet door swing shut like someone had just been in there. She walked over carefully, opened it, and found Adam's toolbox. Thinking it was nothing, she opened it to double check, and then stopped when she saw it was full of old nude photos hidden inside. Evelyn had finally had enough. She confronted Adam about the magazines, the hidden pictures, and the way he'd been acting lately. She wasn't angry, just tired, confused and scared by everything happening around them. Adam tried to explain, said the pictures didn't mean anything, said it wasn't about her. He looked worn out, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Then he told her the truth. His business was falling apart. Half his clients were gone. The local shops had stopped buying, and most of the work had shifted overseas. Everything was drying up fast. And worse, he had emptied their savings just to cover Nelson's college fees. Later, Evelyn told Adam about something strange she saw earlier while she was with Lucy. She couldn't explain it, only that something in this house felt wrong. The paintings, the silence, the shadows in corners where there shouldn't be any. Adam didn't seem to take her seriously. He said he didn't know what she was talking about. That night, Janice couldn't stand the painting in her room anymore. It gave her this awful feeling, like something about it was creepy. She grabbed a sheet and threw it over the frame before going to sleep, hoping that would be enough to shut its presence. But that night, the painting came alive again. Cold, ghostly hands reached out from behind the cloth and started cutting her hair. She woke up in the middle of it, heart racing and breath stuck in her chest. She thought maybe Lucy did it again and stormed out to check. But the whole house was silent as everyone was asleep. When she went to close her bedroom door, she froze in place. Right there in front of her, a figure was slowly stepping out of the painting. Her skin went cold. She ran and hid in the closet, peeking through the crack as the cloth slipped to the ground and revealed the frame. But the man in the painting wasn't there anymore. Then she felt it, the tug on her hair. Someone was behind her. She turned, and the man was right there. Grinning in the dark, he held her hair tight. She screamed and screamed until her parents came rushing in. By the time they got there, the figure was gone, just a painting on the wall again, like nothing had ever happened. Janice tried to tell them what she saw. She pointed to the frame, said he was there. Adam looked around but saw no one. He said maybe she was just having a nightmare, but she showed them the cut hair scattered across the floor. Adam didn't argue after that. He went straight to the painting and tried to pull it off the wall, but it was stuck. He called Nelson, and the two of them forced it down together. Adam told him to take it out of the house, but something had already slipped loose. Later that night, Adam heard a soft voice whispering close to his ear. He looked over and saw Evelyn sleeping deeply beside him. He followed the sound to the attic. When he got there, a single candle rolled out of the shadows across the floor. He bent down, picked it up, and lit it with shaking hands. In that flickering light, something slowly appeared in the dark that made his skin crawl. Elsewhere in the house, Evelyn jolted awake. In her dream, a woman had leaned in close and whispered in a strange voice to make her one of the painted. Adam woke up alone in the attic, still shaken from everything that had been happening. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, he noticed two glowing eyes staring straight at him from the corner of the room. He panicked for a second, thinking it was something alive, but when he angled a mirror and reflected a bit of light toward it, he realized it was the painting of the nude woman, the one he thought he had gotten rid of. Something about the way it looked now felt even worse. Without wasting time, he grabbed a cloth, threw it over the frame, and tied it tightly with a rope like he was trying to trap something inside it. The next morning, Evelyn walked into the living room and froze when she saw a weird setup that hadn't been there the night before. There were candles carefully placed on the table and bowls of paint sitting on the floor in front of an empty easel. Curious and already a little uneasy, she stepped closer and spotted a ring. She picked it up and held onto it. Then, just a few steps away, she noticed an old book lying open on the floor. On the page was a title that made her stomach turn, The Painted. That evening, Adam tried to push Janice to eat, but Evelyn told him to stop. She said they could talk later, but he insisted on continuing. With a heavy sigh, Evelyn finally told the kids the truth. Money was tight, and they had to be careful now, even with the little things. That same night, Adam went back to the attic, feeling like he had forgotten something. When he opened the door and walked in, he saw the cloth was gone and the rope had been ripped off. The painting was fully exposed again, like it had undone everything on its own. Meanwhile, Evelyn woke up to soft footsteps echoing down the hallway. She figured it was Lucy and stepped out to check. As she moved through the dark house, she heard quiet giggling, like a child hiding and playing just out of sight. She followed the sound downstairs, but what she saw next made her stop completely. A small child jumped straight into one of the paintings and vanished. Shaken but determined, she grabbed a flashlight and slowly made her way back toward the painting. It looked totally normal again, like it had never moved. But as she leaned in closer, she noticed the painting had changed. The child was in it now, standing still, eyes wide open. Evelyn stared at it, trying to understand what she was seeing. Then the child inside the painting spoke in a voice that didn't sound like it came from the room. The child called Evelyn, Mommy, and asked her to come and get him. Evelyn spun around, feeling a sudden rush of fear, but she was alone. She heard the giggle again, and this time when she looked down, the child was real, grabbing onto her leg before darting off. Evelyn chased after the figure into the kitchen, but once again, it vanished without a sound. Then, out of nowhere, the basement door creaked open on its own. Evelyn stood at the top of the stairs, staring into the pitch black, breathing heavy, trying to decide whether to go down. But before she could even take a step, the child was silent, fast, and appeared behind her. then shoved her hard. Evelyn tumbled down the basement stairs, disappearing into the dark. Nelson woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling crawling up his spine. Something felt off in the room. The painting on the wall across from him was melting, the colors dripping like hot wax, sliding down the frame like the art was dying. Still half asleep and totally confused, he got out of bed and stepped closer. But before he could even figure out what he was looking at, another painting nearby started melting too. He reached out with one hand and let some of the paint touch his fingers. It didn't feel like normal paint at all. It moved like liquid metal, cold and alive, sliding over his skin like it was searching for something. Then, without warning, it shot up and latched onto his face. The paint gripped him tight and began pulling, dragging him closer to the canvas like it wanted to swallow him whole. The noise shook the house. Adam heard it and rushed downstairs. He burst into the room and saw Nelson stuck to the painting, his face covered in thick black paint. Adam ran forward and grabbed him, pulling as hard as he could. The paint didn't want to let go, and the two of them struggled, the sound of ripping paint and breathless panic filling the room, until finally Nelson broke free and hit the floor. As soon as they backed away, the painting returned to normal, sitting still like nothing had happened. At the same time, far below them in the dark basement, Evelyn slowly opened her eyes. Her body ached from the fall, but she forced herself to move, crawling across the cold floor until she found the flashlight. The batteries had fallen out, so with shaky hands she slid them back in. But as soon as the light turned on, something stepped out of the dark. The demon stood just a few feet away, and though its face was beautiful, its hands were not. Evelyn stared at it, trying to understand, trying to speak, but before she could react, it was already gone, just vanished into the shadows. Moments later, Adam and the kids came running down the stairs. They found her still on the floor, holding the flashlight, frozen like she had been petrified. She didn't wait or explain. She just looked at Adam and told him they had to leave the place as soon as possible. They all went back to their old house. Things felt a little calmer there, like the nightmare had been left behind. Later, Evelyn sat with Adam and told him something had never made sense about her cousin's death. Everyone said it was a murder-suicide, but that just didn't add up. They were newlyweds, happy and just starting their lives. Evelyn believed that night wasn't what people thought. She believed her cousin's husband, Clive, had been trying to summon something. She didn't know what it was, but she could feel it still lingering in the shadows of the house. She stood up, said she had something she needed to do, and walked out the door. Meanwhile, Janice and Lucy were down in the basement again, playing and packing boxes. Janice said she'd be back in a minute and headed upstairs to grab more. Lucy stayed behind and sat with her dolls, trying to keep herself distracted. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something strange. The same child from the painting was in the room, stalking Lucy. He looked at her, then turned and silently motioned for her to follow. Curious and unsure, Lucy chased after him, but before she got far, the demon crawled out from the dark. It moved fast and low, and before she could scream properly, it had already grabbed her leg and was dragging her back toward the shadow. Janice heard her scream and ran down the stairs. When she saw Lucy being pulled into the darkness, she didn't stop to think. She grabbed her and pulled with everything she had. The demon held tight, but Janice held tighter. After a tense, messy struggle, she finally got Lucy free. They backed away, breathing hard, but Janice noticed something strange in the corner. At the end of the cardboard tunnel, the painting was there again. She stepped forward, reached out without thinking. But right then, Nelson ran in and yanked her hand back before she could touch it. Janice turned to Adam and said the painting was back in the basement. Adam didn't argue or ask questions. He just nodded and told her he'd take care of it. Evelyn showed up at an old bookstore just as they were closing, and even though the woman behind the counter told her they were closed, Evelyn didn't leave. She said she needed help, and when she mentioned the painted, the woman's face changed completely. Without saying much more, the woman led her down into the basement. The room was filled with paintings similar to the ones at the house. The woman finally explained what Evelyn had gotten herself into. The painted were spirits, summoned through art, locked into canvas and left there by people who believed they were doing something powerful. She said the book Evelyn found was one of the last ones still out there. She explained most spirits stay the same after death, just floating through the world like memories. But when they were painted, something changed. The paintings gave them a home, but that also opened the door for darker beings to come through. She said the ritual had been banned over 100 years ago, back in the early 1920s after too many people disappeared and too many paintings started doing things they weren't supposed to. Now, most of the cursed artwork was locked up in places like this, just to keep everyone safe. Evelyn said the painting she saw looked new, like it had just been finished. The woman didn't seem surprised. She said the Franco family had always been deep into this stuff, hiding things, experimenting, chasing immortality. As they started heading back upstairs, Evelyn happened to glance over at one of the old paintings, and what she saw made her stop walking. Back at the house, Adam was deep into research, flipping through anything he could find about what they encountered. That's when he came across something called a succubus, and it totally freaked him out. The way it was described, the way it moved, even the face, It was exactly like the woman in the painting. He kept digging and eventually found a faded newspaper clipping that showed a photo of the Franco family estate, and in that photo, standing off to the side, was a woman he recognized instantly. Later that night, Adam burned the painting. He watched it curl and blacken and turn to ash, but Evelyn told him it wouldn't matter. That thing would just come back, like it always did. Nothing was going to stop her. They had to figure out where she came from. Adam showed Evelyn everything he had found. She stared at the old photo and asked if he was sure it was her. Adam said he was almost certain. Her name was Cassandra Dupier. She wasn't actually part of the family, but she had known Ivor, Clive's great-great-great-grandfather. After she died, strange things started happening in town. People went missing. Others took their own lives. Some just vanished, and no one ever figured out why. Evelyn asked him about the fire. Adam said the original house had burned down in 1907, taking Ivor and his wife with it. The house they were living in now was built right over the remains, on the same foundation. Only 3 years later, Evelyn stood up, said she knew what had to be done. The ritual could still work, but to trap Cassandra for good, they needed something she loved most, something deeply personal. Evelyn remembered seeing another room in the basement, one they hadn't gone into yet, and she believed whatever they needed was in there. Before they left, Evelyn pulled the kids close. She looked at them and said they'd be back soon. She didn't give them any more details, just told them everything was going to be okay, even if none of them really believed it yet. Later that night, strange things started happening in Nelson's room. The bottles of paint on his shelf rattled, and before he could even sit up, the caps popped off and began to pour out. Thick, colorful streams slid across the desk and over one of Lucy's old paintings, slowly covering it completely like something alive. The old image vanished under the mess, and in its place, a new shape took form. It wasn't just random paint anymore. The outline of the succubus was taking shape right in front of him. Just then, Nelson woke up with a weird feeling and turned around, only to realize the painting was empty, and whatever had been inside it was now standing right behind him. Back at the Franco house, Evelyn warned Adam that the demon might be using the paintings as a way to attack them. While she headed for the secret room in the basement, Adam began clearing the house of every painting he could find. Evelyn stepped into the hidden room and spotted a small wooden box in the corner that looked untouched for years. It was locked, but just then something dropped behind her. She turned to see a key on the floor, like it had been left there on purpose. She grabbed it, opened the box, and pushed past a few old letters and cards until her hand hit something cold and metallic. Cassandra's pendant. The second she touched it, a wave of vision hit her like a punch, and her mind filled with images she didn't recognize but somehow understood. As Adam came back to check for more paintings, he noticed something terrifying. The figures inside, some of them were missing, like they had slipped out without anyone noticing. Back in the secret room, paintings began to lift off the floor and rise into place on their own, and one by one shadowy shapes started to appear inside them. The candle Evelyn was holding flickered violently before going out, and the door creaked as it began to swing shut behind her. She spun around, staring into the dark as something started crawling out from one of the frames. She stepped toward another painting, trying to understand what she was seeing, but before she could think, the figure inside moved. The arms inside the frame reached out and tried to pull her in, and suddenly all the paintings in the room came alive at once. Dozens of hands burst forward from every canvas, grabbing at her from every side. Elsewhere in the house, Adam was under attack. A figure leapt out of a painting and wrapped its hands around his neck, choking him hard. He fought back, managed to rip the painting off the wall, and hurled it across the room in a panic. Gasping for air, he rushed to the basement, knowing Evelyn was still trapped. He found her surrounded by shaking frames and shadows trying to claw their way into the world. He reached his hand out, and she grabbed it tight, and with all his strength, he pulled her out. As they stepped back into the hallway, Evelyn, still shaken, looked at him and said she had seen Cassandra. After everything they had seen, Adam and Evelyn gathered all the paintings in the yard, dragging them out one by one under the cold sky. The wind felt heavy, like it was warning them not to go through with it, but Adam didn't stop. He doused them all in gasoline and struck a match, and soon the fire was eating up the canvases. The flames rose fast, and for a second, it looked like some of the faces inside the paintings were screaming as they burned. Adam glanced at Evelyn but stayed quiet, just watching the fire climb higher. At the same time, inside the house, Nelson quietly picked up Lucy without saying a word and began carrying her away. Janice watched in confusion from the hallway, not sure what she was seeing, but something about his silence didn't feel right. She followed him down the stairs, calling out, but Nelson didn't look back. He walked into the basement and closed the door behind them. Back in the car, Evelyn explained what she had pieced together. She said it was all part of a curse that started long ago with Ivor Franco, who was known for painting spirits and bringing them back in strange ways. Ivor had fallen in love with Cassandra, a mysterious heiress, and they had secretly planned a future together. But before it could happen, Cassandra became terminally ill and begged Ivor to make her one of the painted, so they could stay together inside the canvas even after death. Ivor painted the canvas for her, a place for them to live and love forever. After she died, he was supposed to finish the ritual by ending his own life and joining her inside it. But when the moment came, he couldn't go through with it. He abandoned her in that painting, and the love she had turned into something darker. Alone and furious, Cassandra cursed Ivor and every generation after him. Adam added that Cassandra had changed. She became something else, a succubus, a demon that feeds on men and uses them to destroy others. She had been trying to get inside his mind and take control, but before they could talk about it more, Janice ran up to the car, out of breath and scared, saying Nelson had taken Lucy into the basement. Down below, things had taken a dark turn. Nelson was trying to kill Lucy as he was emotionless and completely out of control. But Lucy fought back and managed to wriggle free, bolting through the basement as Nelson ran after her. Upstairs, Adam heard the commotion and charged toward the stairs just in time to block Nelson from catching her. He shouted for Evelyn to get Lucy to safety while he stood between Nelson and the rest of the family. Nelson lunged at him like something wild, but Adam shoved him away, grabbed Janice's hand, and rushed upstairs. They slammed the basement door shut behind them, but it didn't hold for long. Nelson started banging on it like an animal, and with each hit, the wood began to crack. Adam asked Janice to find something, anything, and she handed him a chair. He jammed it under the knob, bracing the door as the pounding grew louder. Evelyn looked at Adam with that same fire in her eyes and told him they had no more time. The ritual had to start now. She turned to Janice and told her to leave immediately, to go straight to the neighbor's house and stay there, no matter what happened tonight. As house wasn't safe anymore, and nothing inside it could be trusted, Evelyn brought the last painting out from Nelson's room, holding it carefully like she knew this one mattered more than all the others. Adam set it up on the easel, his hands shaking just a little, as if even touching it might let something through. Evelyn told him that once they lifted the curse, they had to break Cassandra's bond with the painting forever. The only way to do that was to destroy it completely. Adam didn't hesitate. He soaked the canvas in alcohol, then covered it with a thick cloth while Evelyn laid Cassandra's pendant right in front of it, like a final offering. Down in the basement, Nelson went crazy. He crashed into the power box as he stumbled, snapping the wires and throwing the whole house into darkness. The lights went dead, but upstairs, Adam and Evelyn stayed focused. They lit the candles one by one and watched the shadows twist as Nelson began pounding on the locked door. Adam tore the cloth off the painting and froze when he saw Cassandra had already returned. She stared at them from the canvas, smiling like she knew what was coming next. Without wasting time, Evelyn gripped Adam's hand and called on Ivor Franco, begging his spirit to show himself, to paint himself onto the canvas and lift the curse. But nothing happened. The flames on the candles danced, but the canvas stayed quiet. Adam whispered that it wasn't working. Evelyn kept reading from the ritual book, her voice steady but full of desperation. The words said that for a spirit to take shape, it had to be willing. Adam looked down at the pendant, and Evelyn realized what the book truly meant. The ritual could be done, but only if Ivor chose to appear. She said Ivor had refused. Adam said then there was only one way to finish it, and that was to fulfill the vow Ivor had broken. Then, without hesitation, Adam pulled the knife into himself. Evelyn ran to him, horror taking over her face, but it was too late. He had already given what Cassandra wanted, a willing sacrifice. Adam's voice was weak now, but he told her everything was ready and that it had to be him. He asked for forgiveness, and then he died. Downstairs, Nelson pushed the door open halfway. Evelyn stood up quickly, her body trembling but her mind locked in. She summoned Adam again, and as the air turned thick, the paint began to rise on its own and swirl around the room. A new shape formed on the canvas. It was Adam. At the same time, Cassandra's dress reappeared on her painted body like the ritual was finally complete. Then Evelyn looked at Nelson. For a second, he looked like himself, quiet and still. But then he smiled, and she knew right away that it wasn't Nelson anymore. Cassandra had taken full control. He stepped toward her and wrapped his hands around her neck. She struggled, gasping, as he choked the life out of her. But just in time, Janice rushed into the room. She tried to pull Nelson away, but he threw her across the floor like a rag doll. As Evelyn reached out toward the lighter, Janice saw what she was trying to do. She grabbed it, lit it fast, and hurled it straight at the painting. The flame hit Cassandra's image and spread like wildfire. Her face twisted in fury as the fire burned her away. At that same moment, Nelson let out a scream that wasn't his, like something was tearing its way out of him. Then he collapsed, finally himself again. The haunting of Cassandra and the paintings was over, and the family grieved the death of their father. Evelyn glanced at the painting one last time and saw the silhouette vanish completely. Later, it was revealed what Adam had seen in the attic on that first night in the house. It was Cassandra, alive and out of the painting. She had seduced Adam, and he had made love to her. It seems he tried to join her again by dying, but the joke was on him. Now he was the one trapped in the painting, alone for eternity.